Hey, this is More Than Velocity. I'm Bart Pear here with Jordan Oseguera and Ryan Croton. And today we are talking with Ryan Strickland. Ryan has been a high school baseball coach in the South Georgia area for decades now and actually started using ArmCare a couple of years ago and has had a lot of success. And we just wanted to talk with him about how he's using it and some of the things that are changing. I know he's actually changed roles and teams and some other things, and so there's a lot going on there, and it's all sounds pretty good. So we thought we'd sit down and talk with Ryan Strickland. And so Ryan, why don't you just start us off by giving a little background about who you are and what you've been up to.
So this is I think I'm going into my 18th year, 17th year. You kind of lose track a little bit of coaching high school baseball. Started off in North Georgia, up there at Model High School, and moved back south. I'm from South Georgia, and spent some time at Colquitt County where I'm at now as an assistant, and then was the head coach at Thomas County Central for the past 7 years, about 20 minutes south of here. Was there for 7 years, and we had a good run and a lot of success there. We went to four Elite Eights. I think they had only been in one in the history. Down there, they had only been one previously, and we were able to make it to four. And not only that, we were playing up two classifications, bigger than we were 1,300 kids in a school playing against schools with 1,900, 2,000 plus kids. So to compete at that level with the numbers we had, we had a really good run there. And so I just recently here in the end of May accepted the job at Colquitt County High School, up in Moultrie, Georgia, 20 minutes north of Thomasville, where I was at. It's a 7A school, one of the larger schools in the state. Very rich history of baseball. A lot of guys, big league guys, two state championships, numerous region championships. So it's a good little baseball place, and excited about getting started here and kind of doing a little bit of what we did down there with ArmCare and implementing it. We've started implementing a little bit. We haven't got all our kids in the portal yet, but started, getting them used to the exercises and the things that kind of go along with it, and the daily routine of it.
Cool, Jordan. I know you've been talking with Ryan quite a lot over this time. Why don't you start with kind of your experience?
Yeah, so Ryan was an early adopter of ArmCare, kind of right when I was coming in. Ryan was at the door too, coming in to use ArmCare. And, if I remember right, kind of from those early onsets, you were worried that you were gonna have to kind of micromanage and make sure guys were doing stuff. One thing I kind of want to go over is in your experience, has using ArmCare taken things off your plate so you can actually have your hands free to do more coaching, so you can do more
Oh,
hands-on work with the athletes?
Oh, for sure. And Chance Carter's kind of been involved in those. He's my pitching coach. He was my pitching coach at Thomas County. He's come up with me to Colquitt County as well. So Chance is, you spend a lot of time talking to both of us, and Jordan has been absolutely awesome. And he text, emails, reaching out through this whole process. So that's been vital to us and what we've done of having that support. But yeah, when we first did it, wasn't quite sure how that was going to go and how it was going to work, and but the ease of it with the kids having once they get into a routine, once the kids kind of know. That was the biggest thing, is establishing a routine. And so, they get out there, our pitchers, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to get on their ArmCare if that's scheduled for that day, and run through the various exams, your fresh exam, your primer, whatever it is for that day. And once they got in that routine, you just kind of let them go off, and they were able to handle it and work through it, without you worrying about them. So now you're off with your catchers or your other guys who might need your focus and attention, and they're able to it's got the videos on there, it's got the step-by-step walkthrough, that if the kids have a question, they don't have to have a coach standing right there next to them to say, "Oh, well, you got to do this," and I can pull up the video, and this is how I'm supposed to perform the exercise, or this is the next step with a visual to go along with it, which I think is important for kids nowadays, is to have something, a video or whatever. That's the kind of the world they grow up in, is watching videos, and so having that to walk through them, a lot is taken off of your plate, and so instead of having pitcher time and you got to schedule that, then bringing the rest of the team, you're doing this now all at one time, and it allows more time to go do other things that might be important to your team, prepping for a game or prepping for the week or whatnot.
Real quick on that too. This may be a question for Chance specifically. We'll probably have to have him on at some point. But how has it helped you build out your pitching rotation? Have you used it in that at all?
Yeah, so like one of the biggest things I know we talked about this a couple years ago, three, whatever it was when we started. For us, all our guys are just about two-way guys. And so, your guy's pitching and he's playing the field. And that's been my biggest, concern in all the years of coaching is how do you manage that? And so what we learned from this is, especially with the arm scores and and I might not be getting these terms right, so y'all please correct me if I do, but the percent freshness or the strength, that they maintain after throwing. You figure out real quick, like this past year, we had a kid. He was 88, 91. And I personally think a lot of his gains came from of us implementing this ArmCare system throughout the off season and in season and everything else. But he had a lot of gains, went from topping at 85, 86 to topping at 91 within a year, and then maintaining his velocity at that. But going back to the question, we learned that he could throw multiple times a week in a relief role, and his arm score strengths were up there in those ranges where he was perfectly fine. He was perfectly healthy. So we were able to utilize what we thought was our best arm in more games during the week, and to give us a chance to win more games, than saying, okay, he's going to be a one starter and then go play third base the other two games in the week. And then we had other pitchers on the staff that they threw that one game that week. We ran them up 60, 70 pitches, and that was all they were going to be able to do until the next week of the next start. So we were able to build our staff and utilize our arms in a healthy way more often in more positions for the team to be competitive and have shots to win games. And so, that's kind of how we've used it to build, our staffs over the past couple of years is defining, okay, you're a starter, you're a relief guy that can throw multiple times a week. We learned, okay, the guy starts hitting a 70, 75 pitch range. Based off the information and data we've collected off the app, we know that that's the range where he starts losing a little bit of that strength, and it might be time that we need to be ready to have that next guy going. We know guys that we can stretch up into the 90 pitch range, and they're going to be perfectly fine. And so all that information has come from the use of the app and the use of the system.
Yeah, that to me is the big thing is you're using it to dial in your guys. And if you're a parent and you're looking at like, hey, I don't know how the Georgia high school area works, but if you're like on the border of choosing between having to go to a couple schools, if it's me, I'm probably going to send my kid to someone who's going to take care of my kid's arm realistically. And hearing you do that, you're probably running this better than a lot of the universities are running it because you're dialing in roles. And the big thing is now it's like, not only is he throwing harder, but he's maintaining that velocity. And to give you an example, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's the big thing for me is you see these guys top at 91, but then they'll sit 85. Well, what can we do to get that? If that's your max, how can we not get it consistent? And that's, I think, is the biggest thing we've had over the past 2 or 3 years we've been run this is, okay, you're topping this, but now we're getting you sitting there. And I believe it's from what we're doing there. And it's taking care of going back to the use of the ArmCare, the guys going and playing third base or shortstop or catching or outfield. That next day, you know how to manage their workload in your practice setting on, okay, well, here goes his arm score. Well, he don't need to make any throws. It doesn't matter. He's a no throw, guy today. And as a coach, it saves you a lot of times. Everybody wants to say, oh, the kid is soft, or, then the other players on the team are like, hey, well, why don't he have to throw today? My arm's kind of sore. Well, your arm might be sore, but it's in a good place to keep throwing based on what this data is telling us. His isn't. And so you get a lot more buy-in and a lot more, a team buy-in from that and understand that we're doing what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Ryan. I think how you're using it has probably evolved. I'm very curious, when you first said, I'm going to pull the trigger on this and try this, what was your thinking there? What was your goal at, a couple of years ago when that happened?
It was Arm issues have been, terrible in recent years. I mean, you can see it, and I guess so much of it is the knowledge out there in social media and the news reports. But it's probably been around forever. But the nature of baseball has changed too. Our kids going off and playing on the weekends and in the
Yeah.
summer, and the workloads that they're going through has changed as well. And it was one of those things where adapt or die. That's if you're not changing or tweaking something or keeping up with the times, I think you're getting behind. And so that was my ultimate goal is how can we better manage our kids? Because for me, it wasn't so much when they were with me that I was worried about, because I felt like we did a pretty good job as it was, but it was when they were going off and playing. So, the kid I referenced that has a golden arm, we could send him with a sensor. We could send
Yep.
him with our thing. And now, instead of us telling us how he felt or what was going on, we could go into our team portal and see exactly what's going on. And then that when he came back home after being, Atlanta's six, kids in South Georgia, they're driving 6+ hours to go play travel baseball if they're going to go play it. And so now them coming back with us in between the time, we knew how to kind of manage them in the summers, and in the off season to help prepare them better for their play with these teams outside of what we do. And so that's kind of what my goal was to begin with is year round. If the kids are going to do travel ball, or if the kids are not going to do it, how can we better develop what we have throughout the entire year?
That's awesome. Were you intimidated by the tech at all?
I okay. I was a chemistry major in school, and so numbers and data and all of that. Science is my field, so
All right.
I'm probably a lot more comfortable with that kind of information and research and all that than most other people. Maybe I don't know, but it's something that's how my mind works. That's what I did in school, and so all of that stuff I get it kind of into the whole biomechanics in the body and all the way that things work, and it's kind of my niche, I guess. And so no, I was not intimidated by it. I was comfortable with it. It's what for me, it's what I seek. It's what I thirst for. Is what are we doing? Is it being backed up by something? And can that tell me if we're heading in the right direction or not? And that's what the arm care has given us. Are we managing arms right? Are we developing arms right? In terms of health and strength and everything else that goes along with it.
That's awesome. Croton, I see you over there smiling at some of the stuff he's saying. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, you guys can hear me okay? The
Yep.
internet can be spotty. Okay. So the thing I really like about this, there's a lot of themes. One, the management of the two-way player.
Mm.
That's a really big issue, and the ability to empower the athletes to do what they do themselves, that was a strong message as well, because, a lot of the teams, I mean, even when you go to your high school team, you might have one trainer, in a pretty big roster. And
And
developing these
oftentimes that one
habits.
trainer is doing 10 sports.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the thing is that the athlete starts to become independent. And that's, as a coach and someone who guides, processes for players, you want them to be able to own something that they can carry forward,
Yep. Our,
Um,
our 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 big message is my job as a coach is to remove my job as a coach and put that accountability back on the player, because if they're not going to take accountability of it, their career is going to be very limited.
Yep.
right. And a lot of the time as well, and we got to really position our coaches. And it's great that you ask questions, and we got the education for it and everything else. We've had a couple of injuries that have come up, non-surgical, thank God. But when we dig into the process, the athletes are skipping tests.
Mhm.
And you find that when they get hurt, what they do, you'll have a big gap of months. The coaches might not do anything in the off season, and then in season they do a couple tests and it gets busy. And then you see this like hurried test where the arm strength scores are really bad. And that kid's hurt on that test. There's just so many gaps. So, representing the high school world, which is they have the most injuries. I mean, those kids are developing bodies, they're throwing harder, and their arms are, wet noodles. They're not really strong. And, if we can get like you messaging coaches, to integrate this technology, regular testing, developing these habits, these kids have a way better chance of staying healthy, you know. And that, getting back to that two-way guy, managing them well. If you have to do an extra test because a guy pitches 100 pitches, let's just say he's an 18-year-old, and the next day you want him to catch, let's just say, because the rule is we don't want to pitch him and catch him in the same game. I mean, that's kind of, but you need him to catch, okay? Because he's your best catcher. And he's also, one of your best pitchers. Well, you got to do the test again to see how recovered he is, right? Because now you're putting on 180 throws or, around that on the catcher again. So, I think you're representing a demographic of our customer base that we really want to tool up, really well. And I think this is my opinion. Jordan, I'll ask you guys, but if the player's a two-way guy, I think they follow a pitcher's throwing program. Because I got a lot of there's some two-way guys that have reached out to me, and they kind of do the bare minimum with their throwing, and then they're in games. So that's another thing too. Is it an underload problem? And that's why doing the primer, doing your tests, your athletes are going to know, hey, I'm in my throwing program. I'm focused on being a pitcher, but I can dial it down if I need to recover, especially if I'm playing every game. So,
yeah. And that's how we've approached our two-way guys. If they're a two-way guy, they're a pitcher, and we can incorporate the defensive throwing within a pitcher's throwing program. It's a lot easier to do than say, okay, you've got to do a pitcher's program, then come back and do all these throws on top of. And it just takes a little creativity, I believe, and a little, just a little bit of extra of teaching it. But in our experience, most of the time you get the kid understanding throwing's throwing, catching and throwing's catching and throwing. But it's a lot easier to incorporate a position, guys throwing into a pitching program, a pitching protocol versus the other way around.
Yeah. I just want to add one more point. What you're saying is, I think is really solid because, especially if it's an infielder, they have to throw from 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and you're getting them different throwing variability, it makes them more adjustable. And I notice like a lot of programming, Jordan, you can probably attest, the athletic pitcher making athletic throws, that are kind of off being on the mound or standing in place and throwing out of a delivery on a flat ground, where the hand might be in here, and you're shuffling double play throws. Those kinds of things I think are good for them. So I think that's great. It's good to hear all this.
Yeah, and so the very rare times we do have POs, I put them out there that they're turning double plays from shortstop, they're turning double plays from second base just to learn, because they're going to have to make those throws in PFPs, and and nothing's repeatable. I mean, a kid does not repeat a same throwing motion and the same release off of a mound, even though we're trying to work towards that. So I think being able to throw from multiple positions even helps you on the mound when you go, talk about commanding the zone a little bit. And if I drop down this hair on this pitch, can I still control it? And you're right, Ryan, hitting those things and the athletic picture. Pitchers are athletes, and I think we forget that a lot of times.
I think this is my final thought, and I know we're running out of time. So Bart, if you got to stop me, stop me. But for us, in my mindset, and I'm saying us as in ArmCare, having the perfect biomechanics is never going to happen, because you may have a day like right now, just because I'm getting old, fat, and out of shape. And now, again, I can't blame this on anything. I was over there working with first baseman the other day. We have a lot of young guys. I was working with footwork around the bag, and there was one ball laying out there, and our shortstop yanked the ball across the diamond. I went to move and rolled my ankle. I'm still good. I can still move. I can still throw. But if that happens and that guy has to go to post, that's going to change his stride angle. It's going to change his stride length. It's going to change his kinematic sequence. It's going to change his kinetics of transferring energy. All those things are going to change. So you better be robust enough in your arm to handle it. If you are, a lot of schools are going to the turf mound now, so they don't have to deal with too much of it. But if you're playing on a natural mound and there's a hole and you have to move on the rubber, that's going to change how you transfer energy. So you better be strong enough to handle it. If you get that PFP and you have to throw off balance, or you have to throw on the run, or if you're a two-way player and you're throwing from various positions, or if you are a reliever and you've been up twice and then you don't pitch today and then you're pitching, you're going to have a whole bunch of different things. And then sometimes it's like the bullpen mound is way different than the game mound because the opposing team's trying to screw with you, right? Or they make it super far or they make it short. It happens. It is what it is. But you need to be robust enough to handle what the game throws at you. Or if there's a rain delay and then you have to re-crank up and get yourself, you got to be robust enough. And we are not here to say that this is the perfect mechanics or this is the perfect training plan or, this is the perfect system. But we do know that if you have the foundation set, if you check the arm score, if you check the shoulder balance, if you check the SVR, if you're recovering, if you're managing fatigue, if you're undulating a throwing program, which we have all that information on all those courses, obviously, you're going to stack the deck in your favor for success. And that's what you're doing with your program is you're stacking the deck in their favor. So yeah, you have a good development system, but it's also because you made sure that that guy who was occasionally hitting the 91, you're going, let's set the foundation. So whatever this, cruel game throws at you, you're going to succeed. And now he's throwing 96 and he's maintaining 96. So end of my soapbox for the day, Bart. I get one. I used it there. But we want to make sure kids are setting that foundation. So no matter what they run into, they're prepped.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk to Coach Strickland a little bit about just early season, preseason, and high school. You've got kids coming in who may have been playing baseball, but others may have been playing football, haven't touched a baseball in 6 months. How are you making sure that they're not getting injured? Injuries happen a lot at that time. Are you using ArmCare? What are you doing in those, in the first few weeks of getting kids up and ready to play?
Yeah, so we hadn't had to deal with a whole lot of guys that do not do something leading up to the season. Even if they play football, they carve out their time to go through a throwing program or a throw progression. But I think integrating that arm care into that tells you, it's easy to put on a script that you're throwing 50 throws a day at 120 feet, and on Wednesday you got 75 throws. Well, what if you're not ready for it? What if you're not, or your arm is not recovered to go make those throws? What if you need to reduce that volume? What if 50 throws wasn't enough? That's the information you're getting out of this app. And again, it's not an end all be all, but it is a piece and a tool that allows, for me, has allowed the other things that we do to measure and make sure that it's not harming the kid and that it's helping the kid. And because if it's doing one or the other, we've got to adjust. And ArmCare is that piece for us that allows us to make that connection. So long answer there, but those kids, you're able to use that app to get them back to the point of being ready to take the next step of let's start pulling the ball down. Let's start jumping on the mound now. That time frame might be different for those kids that have been involved in a sport previously.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but the optics too, of our product really has to change because a lot of people are thinking like this product takes workload away, but in reality, that's not what we're thinking. I mean, you look at the shirts, throw fuzz. We want guys, like what you said, sustainable velocity. We want them to throw often. We want them to be able to throw, more frequently, with longer workloads. We want to develop capacity. And like our thought is, hey, in the way we're redesigning some of the training in our app, we're thinking every day is a high day until the data tells us otherwise. Rather than the optics of saying to this player, making them timid and worried about taking an exam, give them positive reinforcements. Hey, we want to give you the ball as often as possible. Take care of your arm strength. I know you're one coach, you might have some assistants, but guys can sometimes skip out or they go through the motions, and the heuristic I use is quality reps, cash checks. And when Jordan and I work with a lot of guys that are going to make a lot of money, and they get it, but that was in them at a young age. They didn't take anything for granted. And when that happens, man, and you just develop beasts.
Yeah, and just hitting on other examples, like something we learned this past year on a pitcher is, he got really good 60 to 90 pitches. But before then he wasn't really good. Well, we learned from what the data we got from the ArmCare about, we needed to ramp up his throwing. He had to start throwing way before the game started and throw more pitches in the bullpen to hit his peak at the right time instead of hitting it in the fifth, sixth inning. And that went from him losing ball games because of what he did in the first and second inning to him winning ball games, at the right time of the year from us learning that, and so there's just so much. I mean, the player feedback on the little daily check-ins they do on how much sleep you got and those things, and then hey, man, why did you say you only had a sleep score of a 3 last night? What's going on? And the conversations and the relationships and all the other stuff that comes out of this aside from just the arm. There's a lot more, in this thing than, I want to give away all the secrets we learn, but, I want, people need to go figure out some things for themselves sometimes, but there's so much in it that I think every person is going to get a little bit different out of it if you really dig into it.
Yep.
That's awesome. I have a feeling, the high school program is going to be back to the glory days pretty soon with you at the helm there. So it's definitely all good stuff. I think this has been great. I think I would love every high school coach to understand what you understand, and hopefully we can get this out there and spread the word and do the things that we're trying to do. So I appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir.
And until next time, you guys take care.
All right. Thank you.